Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Sit and Kick podcast. I'm your host, Josh Kerr.
And I'm your better host, David Rivich. We actually switched that around. That sounds nice. Today we are sitting and kicking it with not Peter Elliott, not Steve Cram, but Josh Kerr, the man who added Olympic rings to his name this summer, an Olympic medal for his granny, an uncle to the barehanded Jackie Kerr this fall, an engagement ring to his Mrs. Ham this winter, and now a record to his family name in the indoor mile and indoor 1,500 meters. The King of the North, who ran 29.89, 28.26, 29.56, 29.04. He goes in from 800 to 1,200 meters, and he runs 27.69, 27.62. And then for his last quarter, he goes 28.14, 28.69. Negative splitting, a 3:48 mile. Josh, in short, is this the best 6 months of your life?
No, from ages 2 to 3, I became a bit of a baller, so that was pretty difficult to compete with. But it's been going well, man. It's been going well. I'm not gonna lie. I've got high expectations of myself. You know, the brand has high expectations of me. The team does. Everyone's kind of pushing each other on to big things. And to be honest, if I didn't push on from the summer, I'd be getting depressed. So yeah, I'm just out here, just trying to keep things exciting, mate. That's the big idea. We're entertainers at the end of the day, and that's hopefully what it's like watching us race and watching our lives kind of unfold on the social media platforms.
Let's talk about Millrose to Boston. All right, you had 28 days or something like that, 1 month to work from getting second behind Ollie Hoare to then coming back and running a British record. So let's just kind of think through where you were that whole month and what you were doing. Let's give the people what they want to know.
I'm a bitter man, David. I'm a bitter, horrible man behind closed doors. And so it doesn't really take much for me to get real pissed off, which you may have seen before in our YouTube episodes, and some fire was built. And I told you right there, right then, that, you know, that's gonna piss me off, and that's gonna fuel training for a little bit. We had some big goals coming in, and to be honest, it was just head down, get to work. To be honest, the big thing for me, I was very grateful to be in this position where I can go after these times. You know, Dave, you saw me in October, man. Like we had some work ahead of us, and so, you know, when Danny called me on Thursday, he's just like, you know, how you feeling? I was like, I feel brilliant, because there's a bunch of hard work behind me, and, you know, I'm really excited for this opportunity. So yeah, the workouts, I think we probably had, you know, 3 or 4 big workouts in between. And I just, you know, we ended up running the Audible and running that 800 in Spokane. Is it Spokane or Spokane? I mean,
I'll give you what you want at
good.
this point. I don't want to bring you down anymore, so you can pronounce anything like you'd like right now.
Spokane.
Spokane.
Well, we ran the 800 at the Spokies, and it was a good confidence boost. I didn't really want to do it. Danny said it was a good idea. I texted him afterwards. I was like, you were right on that one, Gaffer. Like, that was a good decision. But yeah, it was fluid. It was easy. But yeah, we just got to work back here, and you know, we knew we'd have to be in a pretty fit spot to be able to go after the British record. And then when it got closer, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going after both. Let's get greedy with it. Let's get some excitement. And Danny texted me the week of the race and said, please stop talking about it. Or maybe he called me. He was like, don't, you know, stop hyping it up and stuff. Because I don't know if he was nervous or if he had to stop. Like, he didn't want more people to know about it. So because more people wanted to be in the race or something like that. Because it was quite difficult for the race director to pretty much shorten the field to like 10, 12 people.
Yeah, so let's talk about that as well real quick. So we're talking about that race. You had Waleed, a teammate of ours, pacing. You had Kidder behind you. You had me behind you. And it was a pretty picture-perfect race for that big of a field. So when you're going into those races, you know exactly what's going to be entailed. You told us all what you're going to do. You ended up doing it between 8 and 1,200. You put a 27.6 and a 27.6 together back-to-back, separated yourself from the group of us. We all fucking started swimming in lactic. That's totally fine. We get that. But where do you draw the line for yourself of your expectations? Do you expect to run 3:48, or were you banking on that? Where are you going?
So you called me like 10 days ago, and you were like, you know, I'm going to come to Boston, and we're going to go for this and this. I was like, Dave, this world record ain't too far out, man. I knew I was going to run under 50, but I just didn't know how much by, because I'd never done it. I heard Boston was a fast track. And I was like, if I've ran 3:52 in a race where, you know, it wasn't my best tactical race, but we were on the rail for a bunch of it. and we ran reasonably fast. Like obviously Ollie ran 350. And so I was like, you know what, if I'd have sat on him, I feel like I could have sat on him. He probably still would have beaten me. I'm going to give him the respect there to say that he was better than me on the day, regardless if I had made that move or not. But yeah, I was like, you know, I probably could have ran 351, 350 point high, maybe, I don't know. And then, you know, a full month of work for me during that time was a lot. I knew it was going to help a lot. So I was like, I could go 49, 48. And then when you're talking about that, you're like, well, I mean, 47 is just there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just whatever. I mean, the pace was a bit back and forth. It was a bit fluid. Like I didn't know what we were going to do. I wanted 153, 154 through 800, and then get to work a little bit. I think we're a little bit slow.
Your 809 was 156.75.
All right, so we're probably 155 point high.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Willie did his job perfectly. But it was, the problem is he can't read my mind, and my mind was like, we need to go faster. And I did tell him to go faster once, and he did. He picked it up, and then it was just like, you just got to get out of the way because this is just about to go off. But yeah, I mean, I knew I was going to run fast. I approached it as a 1500 race, and then just kind of dragged my ass that last 109 meters. So you can see me put a little kick in with like 100 to go, and have a little peek over to the time that was on our right, this big board, but it was just so terribly placed, this big board. So we're just like looking over to the right, but yeah, and then just dragged myself. But once I got the first one, I knew I'd get the second one. So it was just like, I didn't really care how fast I ran the mile. I just cared that I got both of them. That was kind of the big idea. But yeah, it was, I mean, it was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be one of my most cherished memories in the sport for my entire life, being able to be in that race and be there when, truthfully, my head and everything there was at Boston, but my heart was absolutely at the USA Championships, knowing how much I wanted to do and be there. But for you guys listening, for you guys watching, we want to say that we actually have video rights for the Lilac. So we're going to do a video race breakdown for the 800, maybe the 3K, we'll see. But then we also just got confirmed video rights from FlowTrack, and we're going to have Josh break down that world record.
British record. You got to take 5, fella.
I got to take 5. So we're going to have Josh be able to break down that British record, Commonwealth record, European record, and really give you guys that expert insight on what kind of a psychopath it takes to run a 55 third quarter. So Josh, you want to talk about the night out, the celebration, what we did after, or do you want to just fucking segue out of this?
It was good fun. I've never ordered beers on Uber Eats, to be honest. And I ended up working out pretty well. We're obviously able to watch our teammates, watch Isaiah make his first world team. That was really exciting. Watch Henry race incredibly well. Watch a bunch of beasts make finals. And yeah, we had a good time. And then it was just, yeah, it was time to go get some dinner. And we seemed to be surrounded by Irish people all night, which was the weirdest thing. And then, yeah, I mean, it was the Guinness went down pretty smooth there. I'm not going to lie. It was coming and going. I
think the more you drink Guinness, the more you hear Irish accents. So those people could have just been from Boston, but the Guinness is what filled our minds with these Emerald Isle.
Well, actually, no, they're not lovely people. They're grumpy people, I will say. Dave was getting rowdy in a pub that only had about us 7 plus 2 older men who seemed to become my best friends at the end of the day. But you know, it was a lot of fun. It was nice to end kind of a really good day where, you know, we had a full PBs across the board, and you know, the ending of an indoor season, so we get, you know, a week of an easier running and things like that. And it's just nice to finish and doing races with your teammates and spending time with them rather than, you know, being on your own or anything like that. I think that's an underrated part about being part of a team.
Absolutely. I mean, when we went to Boston, we all had one mission. That was to get you the British record and get us all personal records and just get pulled along and have a good time. Like Kidder and I both knew that like we needed to run a good time to have a good time. There's no way that any of us were going to go home unhappy. And what we had to do was commit to that. And I'm very happy with the way that those things worked for Kidder and I, and how Wally paced you, and Ali B gets her PR, because that night of Boston, when we were 3 miles away at 2 a.m. in the morning and we're beginning to walk down the narrow brick streets of Boston, like that was some of the most fun I've had. Like I felt relaxed. I felt loose. I felt like I was just with a group of people that we've done something incredibly epic together, and we get to celebrate those moments in the moment. And I absolutely agree that the team aspect of this is one of the biggest reasons I think you should root for our team or a team, because if athletes are genuinely involved in the other athlete's success, then you're going to be able to see that, and it's going to be very transparent. And so, very exciting. Did Josh tackle me into an ice bank and nearly break my nose and scratch up the side of my face? Yeah, he did, but that's all right. I take that on the chin, or take that on the nose, I should say. We have Isaiah, as he mentioned, he just made his first indoor world team. Josh, this is a big discussion right now, but why do athletes turn down world bids?
So even before all this stuff that came out today about, they're not sure what's going to happen with world indoors and stuff like that, and world outdoors with, certain countries getting banned and things like that. But to be honest, like, even if you take the location out of it, it's just bad timing. Like, we have so many championships right now. And if I'm going to be honest, like, who really cares about world indoors? I'm sorry, like, who actually cares about world indoors? Because February, March, April are not times where like athletes have their peak performances. It's not. Like, there's a reason why indoor world records and, area records are slower than outdoors. And it's not because they're slower tracks. It's because people aren't as fit as they are when they're in July or August or September even. And so I feel like, you're only able to send a couple of people. The people who are there, not everyone goes. I don't think there's ever been a year where it's like the who's who of, the 1500 or the 5K or the 3K, sorry, or anything like that. So it's just a little bit like, it's a bit dead, like, with such big years. So you've got obviously Olympics last year. For us, like, we've got Worlds, Commonwealth Games, and Europeans outdoors. You've also then got Worlds again next year, and then you've got Olympics again, and then you've got Worlds. So it's like we're not like lacking championships.
You're not
And
lacking
so,
a team to make.
exactly. And now that the US are going to have outdoors this year, that's so much more important. And so, like, I just feel like, from my point of view, it doesn't hold as much weight. Like, a world outdoor medal versus a world indoor medal, it doesn't hold as much weight. However, if you're someone that hasn't been to a major championships, want to get experience, I think it's a great, championships to go to. But I don't feel like, you're going to see across the board. I'm not really speaking about sprints or anything like that, because in field events, because it's difficult to kind of, I'm just not in that like area. So it's difficult. But you're just not going to see as deep fields. You're just not. And so, when the winners of world indoors this year aren't, in my opinion, world champions.
So let's say Jakob Ingebrigtsen goes world championships, he wins. You still give him that world title, even though he's one of the best of the best.
Yeah, he's one of the best and the best, but it's like when you win the Super Bowl and they call themselves the world champions.
Yeah.
But no one else in the world is playing. So it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. It's such an interesting concept, and people might disagree with me, and I'm okay being wrong. And this is me roasting people that I like as well. It's not really a roast. It's like, for someone like Isaiah, it makes sense, right? Because his trajectory and the amount of times he races and what he likes to do is he likes to kind of, roll into the season. And, he had a bit of a later start than we did. And he's really coming into form. He's raced so well. And then he's gone to the US championships, which you can say it wasn't the strongest US championships. There's plenty of people in there that weren't there.
Yeah.
Which is backing my point up. And he runs a really good race, and he's going to world indoors, and he's going to compete extremely well. And that'll give him a great platform coming outdoors.
Yeah. And you kind of, to add on that. Okay. Yeah. Well, before you say, however, I'll also add something to keep in mind when you see these athletes turning down bids. There's a very different structure in training, in my opinion, and experience of not making a world team. But Nick Willis had a tweet that was essentially about like people turning down world bids, and someone asked like, well, where do you get that information from? Or like, why does that opinion have any weight? And Nick's like, experience. And what they're talking a lot through Twitter threads and things like that is the load of force from travel, from interrupted training for these longer distance races, like mile and 3K. it's very different to go travel to Serbia for mile 3K than it is to travel for an 800 or 400 or sprints. You see guys like Grant Holloway. He's in every single Diamond League or indoor all over the world. He's also running 60 meters for the indoor hurdles, and he's also doing 110-meter hurdles for the outdoor. And that's not to say that it's an easier event by any means, but what it is his ability to structure and work through the techniques of the rounds that he does at those major races are very different than if someone was to do 8 indoor 3,000 meters to then also go to Serbia and run another 3,000 meters. Every event is different. And I think what you'll see is the longer distance you go up for indoor championships, the more the big dogs are going to pull themselves out.
Yeah. Like the 800, I think is still, pretty tactical. You got to work on things to get real sharp for outdoors. It's the same. And, it's the same even in the mile, but it's just an odd year, man, because we are so condensed with championships. And, everyone has their own decision. Everyone has like their own, goals in this sport. And if your goals are to go to as many major championships as possible, then, go ahead and do that. Like that's your decision. But I think what we're seeing is that people are just going, you know what, I'm going to prioritize world outdoors. And the best way for me to do that is taking a little bit of rest now. And then we're going to get back to work and get ready for outdoors. The best thing for Isaiah is to go and get some more championship experience, go and continue this kind of trajectory that he's on, where he's going to continue working, get better, get fitter. And then, maybe take a little bit less downtime and get ready for outdoors, because that's just the way he works. I think Kidder would have been the same. Because the 800 is just that way. I feel like you can knock out a lot more 8s than you can 15s, especially in this day and age where the 15 goes so fast. But yeah, I think it's still going to be exciting championships, and I'm not trying to disrespect any of world medalists or anything like that when it comes to indoors. But I just think that if you're going to hold, if you're putting everything into world indoors to shun world outdoors, I don't think I've ever heard that in my life.
Yeah. Would it make a difference for you if you were training in Scotland or training somewhere closer to Serbia? Like, does the distance of travel also change your perception of whether or not you want to do the event? Like, let's say the World Indoor Championships were in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Would you do them?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, no, the travel makes a huge difference, because it like that changing time zones suck, and getting all the planes and all the risk of illness, and especially all the stuff that's going on right now. It's like, it just doesn't make a ton of sense to go all the way to Serbia for my own training. But yeah, if it was here, I would have done it. But I mean, I think I'm traveling back to the UK probably like 6 or 7 times this year, and it's a lot. It's like, it just seems like this doesn't help. But like, I really do like people who haven't gone to major championships going to these things, because I think it makes such a big difference when you go to your first major championship. It hardly ever goes well, because it's such a different environment. It's very intense. You obviously have all the travel. You have to, you're doing it with USATF, you're doing it with British Athletics, and they have their own, their own coaches, their own physios, their own doctors, and they have their own setup. So it's very good to get used to that kind of stuff and know these people when you're going to try and properly win or medal or make finals or whatever it is that your goals are. I think it makes a massive difference, because people always say like, oh, I'm going, I have the experience now I can go and do it properly. And, I've made a million different decisions since, 2017. If you compare 2017 to 2021, for going to major championships, it would have been crazy different, because you become your own athlete when you get to know the surroundings with your British Athletics or USATF or whatever, rather than kind of fit in their model. They have to fit around you a little bit more, which helps. It helps your preparation and how the races go at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I'm actually reading this book, Malcolm X's autobiography, right? And there's a quote in there, and it just kind of came to me when you said you're doing things differently from 2017 to now 2021. And the quote is, anytime you find someone more successful than you are, especially when you're both engaged in the same business, they're doing something that you aren't. Yeah. And I think that's a very true quote. So when you find that these people go to USA indoors and world indoors, and let's say something happens, and then they don't make those team outdoors, but the people that made those team outdoors didn't run USA or world indoors, there may be some pinpoints there of how the seasons and how the training were trajectorying for world championships. And that's a whole different rabbit hole. I mean, this is coming from a guy that was going to run the USA Indoor Championships, that was going to run in Serbia. Like that was what my thing was. And this is a segue kind of into the next thing that we're kind of chatting about, with kind of how my indoor season went. Ran 4 flat at altitude, then I ran 8 flat for 3K at sea level. Absolutely broke every egg in that basket. And then 2 weeks later, ran 355 in the race with Josh. And so it's like my trajectory, we were banking on me making that indoor team. Like if I would have made the team, I would have gone to Serbia, solely because I have zero experience, kind of like what you're saying, to get that world and international level experience. I don't have that. I'm still getting into races that I could have gotten into college. And I'm not getting into races anything at the professional level because I haven't put myself in the position of a race to get to that point, or I've failed in the moments that I needed to make something happen. But this is what I'm going to say now after Boston. Committing to that pace makes me want to only commit to that pace, because when you look at that race, if you watch my race, there was a moment you made that big move, Josh, at like 8 to 1K, and you press and you went 55, 56. I come up onto Kitter's shoulder, and then I tuck right back in after we go back into the turn. And I thought to myself, okay, next turn, go into it. But I used that one moment of hesitation instead of going around Kidder. I don't know if I would have ran faster. I don't know if I would have blown up even more. Doesn't matter. But when I watched that race, I think what I'm so proud to see is I faded a 31-second last lap to a 355 mile. That's got to be one of the slowest last 200s to run 355. But there's so much room for improvement there off that pace, where I just need to be stronger, more confident, make those moves. But that's so cool to me to see is I made a move at one of the fastest opening 800 meters that I've had, and I wanted to press faster, but then I tucked back in. So there's still a little bit of inexperience there. And that's one of the main reasons I'll race in LA on Saturday. I'm going down to LA to race a 15. And that's something that I want to do, because I'm like, I want to kind of use the fitness that I'm in. There's no pressure in anything that I'm doing, but let me try to lock onto that pace and kind of experiment a little bit more, because everyone is programmed different at the high school, college, professional level. We've said that 1,000 times. And for me right now, what I want is just more experience and more indicators of where I'm at in a race type scenario. I'm brilliant at training. I'm probably one of the most consistent guys on the team in training, and I'll brag about that. But consistent training doesn't necessarily mean it translates to consistent racing. And that's what I want to try to find, that balance and equilibrium in my career, because I'm a workhorse. I'm committed. I do everything right. In my opinion, I could do things better. But the one thing that I'm still lacking is that professional race experience, persona, who I am, anything. Like my race plan going into Boston was be myself first and foremost. I wanted to be myself in everything that I did. I wanted to cross the finish line and immediately go to you, give you a hug. Didn't even know what we were going to run. Didn't care. But I just told myself, finish the race, find Josh, give him a hug. That's the first thing I did. And it felt fucking great to look at the screen and see 348, 355. Wanted to run faster myself, but that's besides the point, because I PR'd and I stuck to the plan of being myself. Then the physical cue that I gave myself, and this is kind of big